Hello and welcome to my weather world, which is also your weather world, and we're going to do an abbreviated version of the weather world today, getting us ready for actually a hiatus that I'm going to have. I'm going to be actually not doing these for about a little over a week and a half, and so we're going to take a little bit of a break. It's kind of our spring break from the weather world, but then we'll be back and we'll be doing this so you can watch at that later time. But today what I wanted to do is start off by doing a little game. I'm sure you've played a game like this before. You need to guess what it is that I'm drawing. First thing that I'm going to draw, nice sweeping strokes around and around. This is something that has an eye that never blinks. What is it? I can actually make it like this, and maybe it just put little waves on it to make it look like it's made up of clouds. I go around and around and around, and it spins and spins and spins, and there's its eye right there. You guess what that is? That's a hurricane. That's a hurricane. Maybe not the best hurricane, but it gives you the idea. All right, here's the next thing I want to draw. Let's draw this. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Down. And then it touches the ground. What is that? That's a tornado. A tornado. Are they the same thing? No. But what makes them different? They're both cyclones. They're both spinning masses of air. Air that's spinning around is called a cyclone. This is a cyclone, and yes, even a hurricane is a cyclone. But what's different about the two? That actually leads us to today's question. We're going to answer this question. This is from Claire. And Claire asked the question, what is the difference between a tornado and a hurricane? So let's talk about that. Let's go over to the weather wall and we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between a hurricane and a tornado. So we have our hurricane that's out here in the Atlantic Ocean. And then we're going to have our tornado is over Florida. Florida does get tornadoes. In fact, there's a lot of thunderstorms. I mean, you need thunderstorms for tornadoes. But so you have the two. So both of these are cyclones. You have the hurricane, you have the tornado that's set up here. And one of the things that makes these two different is the size. So they're both cyclones, but a hurricane is much larger. You have hurricanes that go from a few hundred miles to up to or even over 1,000 miles wide. So these are huge storms that form. And one of the biggest ones that ever hit the United States was actually Hurricane Sandy that really impacted the New York area, New Jersey, and those regions. It was 1,000 miles wide, so that's a big storm. How big are tornadoes? Well, they're usually just a few hundred feet. They can even be smaller than that at times if you get a small one, but up to 2 miles. Those are some of the largest tornadoes that have ever been seen, have been 1 mile to 2 miles wide. That's a pretty big, when you're talking about tornadoes, that's a pretty big tornado. So that's a big difference. These are much smaller, okay, in size, again, but they're both cyclones. What about duration? Well, there's a big difference here too. Hurricanes can last quite a long time. They can last several days to actually weeks. You can have hurricanes going on for close to a month at times as they live out there in the warmer waters, while tornadoes, usually it's just anywhere from a few minutes to possibly up to an hour or more. They usually don't last that long. That's an exception when it lasts up to an hour or more, because typically a tornado will just last several minutes during its lifespan. So the duration is another big difference between the two. Also location. Where do hurricanes form? Well, hurricanes, they have to form over warm ocean waters. So you need to have that really warm water, and that's in good supply once you get out here through the Caribbean and through, again, the places getting closer to the equator. You can't be right on the equator, because another feature that you need to form a hurricane is the Coriolis effect. And we talked about that in an earlier episode, where it deflects the winds. And so that gives it that swirl that we see, is because the winds are being deflected. At the equator, there is no Coriolis effect. It's once you get away from the equator that Coriolis effect starts to increase, and we get that spin with those storms. And so again, over warm ocean waters. What about tornadoes? Where do they form? Well, tornadoes They form over land, and they're associated with powerful thunderstorms. You need to have those powerful thunderstorms because you need to have those strong updrafts that are going up, 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 up. You get those huge towering clouds that form. You get the lightning, you get the hail, all that stuff that's associated with those winds traveling up. But you also get the tornadoes that form, and that pulls that air up, creating that suction that we associate with tornadoes and those winds that spin around so fast. And it's just over land that we have tornadoes, because what happens? Can you have a tornado form over water? Well, you can have what looks like a tornado, but it's not called a tornado. What is it called? It's called a waterspout. Water spouts form over the water, and so we have the spouts that form over the water and tornadoes that form over land. So a tornado just forms over the land, and before it touches the ground, it's called a funnel cloud. That's another thing you need to know. So as that comes out of the cloud, it's called a funnel cloud. As soon as it touches the ground, it's a tornado, and if it touches the water, then it's a water spout. So continue with the differences. This is one of the most important things here you have to realize. You can actually have several tornadoes that are created by a hurricane. So hurricanes can create tornadoes, and it happens all the time because you have these really strong thunderstorms associated with hurricanes. But you can never have a hurricane inside of a tornado. You can have tornadoes inside of hurricanes, but you can never have hurricanes inside of tornadoes. That's a huge difference, and that's something to remember. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's go back over to the wall. So that's the question that we wanted to talk about today. I know this is going to be a much shorter version of what we typically talk about, but hopefully you learned something today, and hopefully it maybe spawned a few questions. You may have had some questions about some of the things that I was talking about between tornadoes and hurricanes. If you have that question right now, make sure you get it to me so I can see it, and I'll either respond to you or actually talk about it on Facebook, our live Facebook that we do here in the Weather World. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for watching this, and hopefully it inspired you to ask more questions. Have a wonderful day.